everyone, and thank you for joining us today on Polywine, where we'd like to take a deep dive into stories pulled from the media and have a fun time while breaking it down. I'm Jillian, and let's get into it. So today, I'm really excited to have my guest here today and friend, Nate Starck. How are you?
Good. How are you, Jillian?
Very well, thank you.
Like,
And I'm really, really excited to have you.
yeah,
You are
thanks for
kind of
coming
like
on.
the guru and like the oracle of the stuff that I swim in every day and love to talk about, which is reality TV, entertainment, movies, documentaries. I love to go down the history rabbit hole with you all the time. It's so much fun. So I'm really excited to have you here.
I've been listening to your podcast, and it's really fun. I love how you get into all topics and you kind of
And,
swim around in all kinds of different stuff. So I'm
well,
excited to
I'm
be
pretty
here.
scattered that way. You know me, so I am a little.
Me too. Me too. Hopefully, we can try to find some sort of through line in this.
I do tend to jump around, so if you want to redirect me in a direction, that's totally fine. It's okay. You know how I am. I'm like a golden retriever. At times I can be easily guided. So I really have recently got into a show of yours that I have to tell you, and I'm a little frustrated at you at the same time because I love it and I hate that I love it so much. Is something that you're a part of, and it's the real Hatfields and McCoys, right? Was it
Crazy,
basically that?
crazy,
And
crazy set of people there. I mean, like, and I love them. I love them all. I love the Hatfields. I love the McCoys, but they are crazy. They are
yes,
crazy.
I love it. I love it. I was a little nervous being from West Virginia originally, so I know the story well. But I always get a little nervous that it's going to be a little bit hillbilly-ish, but it's not. It's not.
It's
I
not.
love that you definitely go into the story. I love the historical component behind it. I am now a big fan of the historian and author,
Ian King, he's
David
amazing.
King. Love
Yeah,
that guy. Love
I
him.
know.
He
I
just
gotta tell you, like he's so smart and just incredible research that he does. His
yeah,
book's awesome.
yeah,
He wrote The Feud, which is the original. I mean, really is the book on the history of the feud between these two families.
yeah.
So it's, I mean, you want to know everything about the Hatfields and McCoys, or get a really get a sense of that history and the Appalachian history. Read his book. He's just,
Well,
it's really fascinating.
yeah.
And but his real world story of going down and doing the research. He's a boots on the ground kind of guy when he does the research. He went down to the Appalachian, into this part of Appalachia, and he starts trying to find the Hatfields and try to meet some of them. And quite literally starts, his introduction to the Hatfields was somebody coming out with a shotgun and shooting a couple of rounds over top of them. So that was his welcome to Hatfield and McCoy territory.
That's how we
Uh,
greet.
yeah, that's how you greet down there, right?
That's
Yeah.
how we
So,
welcome. Yes. Yes.
yeah. But it's not all like that. That's not
Yeah.
that's not really what Logan, West Virginia is all about. That's, there's just, you might have to like
People there.
watch your step. It depends on
Right.
which store you go to, right?
So I'm originally from West Virginia, born and raised. And I think I don't know if I've told you this probably, but West Virginia kind of looks like that on the map, kind of. Where they're from, like right here, I'm from like
Is
right there.
it a
So,
handgun?
yeah, it's right. It's like that. So I'm like from right there. So it's a little ways. So we always kind of had that story like the Eastern Panhandle, like what's so beautiful, but just be careful if you start to go near Logan, right?
Okay.
So like in the
Yeah.
first episode when he came on, it's like Logan, West Virginia, so right? Because all wonderful, lovely people there, but it's just it gets up. It gets a little crazy sometimes. They have their own rules, I think, there. And that
I'll tell you what,
story, that was perfect.
you do not accidentally find yourself in Logan. I
That's
mean, like,
cool.
it is not easy to get there, to find it,
That is
and
correct.
if you think getting to Logan is hard, try getting to Gilbert. Like, that's a
Yeah.
whole other, little town there in West Virginia where the Hatfields are right now. and and trying to find your way there. You're lucky if you have cell phone reception. You're lucky if you make it to their distillery. We would often, with our camera crews, we would lose touch communication for 30, 45 minutes anytime we left from Logan to visit the Hatfields. So, if something happens or something changes, there's no turning everybody back
There's no
or any.
cell signal. Right.
Yeah,
That's
it's true.
Western. I know, like in Pocahontas County, there's like right by the Great Bank Observatory. That's a clean zone. So a lot of people that are sensitive, like to electromagnetic frequency, they move there because it's
Oh,
a clean zone. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So
It could
yeah,
be
when
some
you
of
lose
the
the
cool
signal,
cleaning
like
that they
you're
do
on
out
your
there.
own.
Yeah, there's some.
Survival skills need to kick in at some point.
Hey, I'll tell you, the survival skills are, yeah, they're necessary down there.
I
Yeah.
would not
Well,
survive.
yeah, yeah. One of the
West
Hatfields,
Virginia.
when I first started the project, and I'm talking to one of the Hatfields, Missy, in fact, she tells me that, if anybody wrongs them, they'll just dump the body and they'll never find you down there. So
Right,
that was my
right.
be a good producer threat,
It's
so
a good one.
that was my greeting to
Right.
West Virginia, Gilbert, West Virginia.
Just funnily during the whole wedding, well, just through it all, actually, I'm telling you, I found myself laughing out loud so much because it hits really home to me. It really does. Like, first of all, it takes me about 2 seconds for my West Virginia twang to come right back, right back. So I
I hear it
understood
coming.
the language. It just was the phrases that they were saying was so great. Oh my God, is it Jim? Is it who's married to Missy's? Wait a minute, Missy's
No, you're
Jim and Amber. Just
Amber and Chad.
Amber and
Yeah,
Chad.
yeah.
Okay, Chad reminds me
He's
of so many
amazing.
guys I grew up with. So many guys I grew up with, and he said, "But we just Hatfield, right? He married into this."
He married into the Hatfield family. In fact, he has connections to the Hatfields and the McCoys. Like he was very
Okay,
close to both Hatfields and McCoys,
okay,
which is, really makes this whole thing that much more complicated. Is that these people are
yeah,
like neighbors. They're
yeah,
neighbors. And they were neighbors 100 years ago when the feud was taking place. In fact, the two, patriarchs of this
mhm,
um, feud on the Hatfield side and the McCoy side, they were buddies. They were good friends.
right.
With
They
the
fought in the
Civil
war
War,
together, same side.
they joined the Confederacy together, and in some stories they fought together. And it wasn't until they came back, and Devilance Hatfield was blamed for the murder of the McCoy's brother. The
Right.
and that I guess brother was, when he was killed, it was kind of suspicious, but nobody really knew who did it. It just was kind of like simmering under the ground. But the usual suspect there was, the main suspect for that was Devilance Hatfield.
Yeah. Was it the dean, or the historian and the author? He explained it, I think, so well in this one episode. Just the story itself. He was like, not only is it a story of friends, divided family, but it's also like the American story.
Yes,
Like when you go through history, and it's the U.S. it's a melting pot of all cultures and people from everywhere. Yet when you have this story that caught on at such an early time in the nation, but it also caught on all over, that it really kind of encapsulated like the American story in some way. Like when
absolutely.
you think of an American like historic story, that's one of
Yeah, I mean, because that's, they kind of like embody what we value as a country.
them. Yeah.
They're they're the go-getters. They're the people that are like, they'll
Ever.
stand up for each other, stand up for their family. They're gonna, they don't give up, and they're
Yeah.
survivalists. Like
Yeah.
they know how to live off of this land in these very difficult, terrain,
Yeah.
and they form these communities and these bonds. And this is what we value. And not only that, but they also were really good entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Yeah, Devil Anse Hatfield had this, basically this timber business, and it did it did really well. In fact,
Yeah.
the generations today of Hatfields really benefited from his entrepreneurship, and they'll tell you that. I mean, that distillery, some of that is there because of the fact that they had this timber business.
Yeah.
And, I mean, this is, and their coal mining businesses, and, they are, even today, when you drop into to their neighborhoods and to their communities, you're going to see, the entrepreneurship that was inspired by Devil Anse Hatfield
Yeah.
and
I think
Ron
it's awesome.
McCoy. Yeah.
I
It's
think
really
it's interesting how there's such a
Randolph
connection.
McCoy.
Yeah, no, it's right. I think there's such a cool thing that there's still a connection of the history and how it's kind of certainly back around today. There's still the feuding, but there's the forbidden love. How there was a story of the forbidden love before. I'm sure that's still been going on from other generations, but now you see it today where they got married again, and one of the McCoys and one of the Hatfields, they come together and they marry. It's coming back around again. But didn't they legally just settle the feud like a few years ago?
So yes, there was they ceremonially brought the Hatfields and McCoys together, and
Right.
they did, they settled the feud. I mean, this was, I'm going to get my date wrong here on this. I mean, it was probably 10 or 15 years ago that they did that. And they're, in terms of, of that, like, all Hatfields and McCoys are not walking down the street and shooting at each other the way they did 100 years ago. But,
Right.
what we found, and actually what Dean
They
King
could.
found, he went down, is what he discovered was that there is a McCoy family and there's a Hatfield family that is down here, and they're still trying to live this lifestyle. And the lifestyle not the lifestyle, but they had that entrepreneurship that had been inspired by Devil Anse Hatfield. Well, when we started looking into this community and we started looking at the Hatfields and the McCoys, the first phone call that I had with the Hatfields, they said, "We'll participate in your TV show as long as those McCoys are not part of it." And I said, "Well, okay." So I'm like,
Yeah.
I guess we'll pick, right? So then I called
Right.
the McCoys and they said, "Well, let's see if, let's talk to them and see who, get to know them a little bit." And I talked to them and they go, "Well, we'll participate in your TV show as long as those Hatfields aren't part of it." And I said, "Well, I think we might have a TV show here,
Yeah, I
but I
know,
think
right?
we both need to be part of it."
It sounds crazy, Nate. They're like, how? And other people outside the state are like, why? This is ridiculous that you're going to have a feud go on that long. It's ridiculous. But somebody growing up in Appalachia, sorry, I said Appalachia, and growing up in a small town, like you have generations that are there. Your families have been there. So every time, like you drive past like something, you remember your father's cousin's brother got into a situation there, or do you remember this story 25 years ago where your uncle's brother's cousin? You're like, no, but they do, and it's still like they relive it over and over, and the passion is still there. Whatever form of passion it may take, happiness, anger, rage, whatever, but it's still there, and it's still like it's on the surface level.
Yeah, and look, I mean, they know their history and it really matters. And it should. I
Yeah.
mean, I really care about the history of my family. I mean, it's not as cool as theirs. I mean, their history family was, part of pop culture for 100+ years,
Yeah.
and so that's really cool. But it mattered just like the way that our history matters to us. their history matters to them, and they have their own perspectives on it. They have their
Oh, sure.
perspectives on what that love relationship looked like 100 years ago, and what it looks, and who was at fault and who the
Yeah.
bad guys were. They
Right.
they can sign the ceremonial documents and say
Right.
their feud is over, and it
Oh, yeah.
is. They're not firing guns at each other. That's a good thing.
Right.
But they still, if you ask them, they'll tell you who was at fault for the way things went down.
And they do throughout the show. They
They
do
do.
throughout the show.
They do. And
They
how
pick up
amazing. Like,
every chance they can. Yeah.
this is what I love about producing, nonfiction television. Okay. That, you start out with a premise like, okay, let's check in with the Hatfields and let's check in with the McCoys because that's kind of cool. Like their culture history is cool. But then you stop in and quite literally we turn the cameras on and Courtney McCoy is trying to open up her restaurant, but she can't because of a fire marshal that's a
Right.
hat who's not giving her the permit. And that was just like, we were just like, oh my God, this is amazing.
So I was just like literally laughing in that episode because I'm like, could that be the breaking moment? Could that be the bridge of connection between them? Because it's not the element of love of the wedding that will unite them. It's not that. Whatever. It's, can you get my business open? It's all about the coin, And I'm like, but hey, they're business people. And it's kind
There.
of like that story they have of McCoy's is like the original kind of like reality TV story. There's love, there's hate, there's money. It's about business, and it's, you got it all right there. It's territory, it's power.
It's an Appalachian Shakespeare. I mean,
Yes, yes, yes.
so,
That's
and,
it.
look, I mean, we talked before this about, I worked in movies
Yeah,
and I've been, and before I worked in nonfiction television, reality television.
right,
And, I chose reality television. I really feel like this kind of thing, when you find a story like this and that, where these like parallels from history or some sort of it has some sort of social meaning that is real, that is really happening, that you can't predict as a producer. You don't know what's going to happen today or tomorrow, and you
right,
just find it. It's an adventure. It's an
right.
adventure for me. And I know that when it's an adventure for me, that the audience that's watching it is going to enjoy it. When I laugh, when I'm sitting there behind the camera or following my camera guys and I start laughing at a situation, not laughing at the people, but just because it's fun and
Right.
funny. I mean, I know that the audience is going to, have fun too,
Yeah.
and I love that about this type of work rather than the movies.
Because, like you just like as somebody from the audience, I don't know anything about your side, but from some of the audience, you have that set kind of structure from a movie. Everybody take your marks, quiet on the set. I don't think that you would, from my perspective, it doesn't look like there's any of that. Like it's camera on and go. And when you do see like reality TV, and I'm just thinking off like the top of my head of like Housewives, or sometimes I like to watch like Expedition Unknown or like Naked and Afraid or things like that. Like those people on camera, they're everywhere. They're running around. I've seen like camera guys like jump over bushes to catch things on, and I'm like, do they train, like physically to do that? Like that guy looks like he just pulled a hamstring hurdling that. Like it's constantly in motion. And that's the thing I love about that. In movies, you gotta set aside time and you gotta make like it's a production. But when like,
Yeah.
but there's nothing better than like a 30-minute or like an hour show. Then you kind of get your fix of something good, entertaining, and something that you can definitely talk about with somebody else that's watched it. And that's all you need. You're ready to get.
Yeah, yeah. I was a camera operator. I did some, in Hollywood, and I'd show up on set and the camera assistants would, come out and they'd put the lens on and they would, check out the apertures and they'd make sure this was set and that was set. And, your gaffer does the lighting and your DP checks, decides which lens to put on. Your
Yeah.
director tells you what the shot's going to look like. everybody has one little piece of the role, and my role as a camera operator might that day be sitting on a dolly, and somebody's going to push me in and then pull me out.
Yeah.
It's like zoom in, zoom out, and and then 8 hours later, that's the end of your day, and
Yeah.
it's like and somebody said, we need a camera guy to get, kind of director type person to go down and follow this, Baja 1000. I was like, well, I really don't work in this kind of thing. And, but I kind of got dropped off at the border in Ensenada, Mexico. 2 weeks later, I had the thrill of my life. I mean, I was just a camera guy. It was like every minute was action. Every minute was, chasing and running and going out. It was like I found myself in the middle of a farm field at one point with no food and a couple guys that didn't speak English. And I know 3 words in
Selfish
Spanish.
survivor.
And you're like they're like, you're hungry, right? But they can't say that in English. And I'm like, but we all know what we're thinking, right? We're all starving.
Yeah.
And and they disappear, and I'm like on my own. I'm like, oh my God, they left me.
Yeah.
I'm like here by myself in the middle of this farm field. And about an hour later, they came back with cheese and bread and mayonnaise.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
And let me tell you, when, in that moment, a mayo cheese sandwich was the best thing I ever ate in my
French
life.
toast. Yeah.
It was delicious. So,
Yeah.
but it was from that moment on, I was like, okay, I'm, forget movies. I'm going after
Boring.
documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, and it has been one adventure after another. I've been left on the top of mountains, been left, in some of the craziest places. I've, followed drug addicts into the bathroom of Starbucks, being knocked down by security. I've,
Oh my
chased.
God. Are
It's
you
like,
serious?
oh yeah, yeah.
No, but that's
I mean,
training in school.
what's yeah, they didn't teach you in film school. It was not in film
Yeah,
school
I'm
at all.
sure.
Like how to react when security is trying to knock down the door and you're following a drug addict in a Starbucks.
Right.
Um,
What do you do
the
when you're left in a field in Mexico and starving and nobody's
yeah,
around,
yeah.
right?
What do you do when you've been dropped off by a helicopter at the top of a mountain and
Yeah.
there's
Like,
nobody around? And that's actually a fun story I got to tell you. Can I take a quick
shoot,
tangent? Okay.
shoot, awesome. You've been able to travel everywhere with
Done a lot
doing
of, I've seen, I've seen a lot of like places that you don't normally get to see, which is
right.
kind of fun. But one time I was doing a show with the LA County helicopter crew for fire department, right? And they had an accident that happened on top of the mountain somewhere. Anyway, took 3 helicopters, and I'm on board of one of them, and we land on top of this mountain,
Mhm.
and they realize that they've got more people that they've got to airlift than they expected. So they're like, we're out of room. Do you
Yeah.
mind? And I looked down and I realized that I got on this helicopter in shorts because it was like 75, 80 degrees down at the bottom of the mountain. At the
Right.
top, and there's snow everywhere. And I'm in shorts and short sleeves, shirt, and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I know they're going to be fast. I know it's going to be a quick trip for them.
Yeah.
But
But time
so
goes slowly when
they
you're
take
freezing.
off. Everybody is basically gone. All the helicopters take off. They leave. Mountain is clear, and I'm sitting there by myself with a camera, and just I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna film, but whatever. So I'm just kind of like walking around on top of this mountain,
Hoping there's
and
no mountain lion.
no, there's a road,
Okay.
and and this car comes up, and it drives up, and it like stops about 50 feet from me, and then it backs up, comes back, and the window rolls down, and they go, "Are you okay?" Like clearly I'm out of place at the top of the
Right.
mountain.
Right.
And they were like, "Do you need a ride?" And all of a sudden, from the bottom of the mountain, I hear this woof, 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 woof. And I said, no, I think my ride's here. And the
Oh my God.
helicopter comes over the top of the mountain and it falls, it comes down and it lands. And I'm like, thank you very much. And I ran up, you know what? No explanation. I ran onto the helicopter and then the helicopter takes off and I waved to them. I mean,
That
it
is
was a,
so funny. Can you
it
imagine
was a
just on
little,
the car driver's side? Dude, this guy was just on the side of the mountain, shorts in this
I was
camera.
like, I just wanted to leave some like, weird like impression of like, some, Jack Ryan or something, like
I mean, that's really cool. I mean,
it was.
but it's such different situations. I mean, I can't imagine the on the on the spot critical thinking, problem solving you have to do when you're out in the field, especially in reality TV where it's just constantly a changing and fluid thing. Is yes,
That's what I love about it. You don't predict it. I mean, people always ask like, "Oh, the show's scripted," and the thing is, do we plan? Yes, we plan a lot. How do we
yeah,
plan? We get to know the people that we're going to be following. We know them so well that sometimes we can predict what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. We got to make sure that our cameras are in the right places. We try to predict these things. Sometimes we help kind of, set up a situation to help them get there.
right,
Okay. But this is real life. I mean,
yeah,
these are real people. We're not making these people up. We're not making them do things. We're not giving them lines to read, and that's what I think people kind of miss is that the craft in it is in being really skilled at understanding people and understanding how they're going to react to a situation so that we can be prepared for it. The skill is then in telling the story. I mean, and finding the story. We found the Hatfield and McCoy story. We didn't make it up. We didn't contrive that story. We found it. And we found it through, you know, a real, I mean, probably top level historian, you know,
I
got
love
us
Dean.
got us there. Dean is
Yeah,
amazing. He got us there. And then we found these other pieces that kind of help, that could tell this incredible story that
right.
is, stranger than fiction. And these kinds of things that happen that often
It's
can't predict, don't know are going to happen. I didn't know that Chad was going to nearly burn down his distillery in one of the
my
first
God,
things that we
I
were there.
love that scene where he's like, "That's like 190 proof," and he throws out. I'm like, "That's not good." She's tired, and she's like, "Last time that happened, we got fired."
Last time, the last time it happened. And that's one of those moments where I heard that and I just started like inside, I'm crying inside because I'm like, he almost like I actually, while that was happening,
Great.
I'm like clearing out our gear. I'm trying to get my crew away from the building because what happens when a fire hits a distillery? I mean, it's like, not a good
Right.
situation. And but actually our crew was on lunch at that moment that it happened. That's why you see my iPhone come out. I mean, but part of that is an iPhone clip because literally he showed us how, he threw he showed us
I was like,
how
"That's not good." Because it
he wanted to show us how strong, by the way, I got some for you. Um, this stuff is so good.
his efforts. Oh my God. I have to tell you. So, if I may, can I just go off for 1 second? There was this one scene, I don't remember, it was episode 2 or 3 in season 1. And I love the little kid, the son. And may I just say, the greatest character and unsung hero of the show is the bulldog. Okay? Greatest, and
Everybody loves the bulldog.
Chugs,
Yeah,
Chug.
yeah, like chugs or yeah.
Oh my God, so great. So great. But the fact that he was talking about the process of distilling of moonshine, and I gotta tell you, I love moonshine. Moonshine and grain alcohol is what I actually first started drinking alcohol on, like at young. So There's probably nothing left of my esophagus and GI tract. Yeah. Um, so with it, he was talking about making a while of that, and I love that you have to have subtitles, right? And he kept saying the R, and I'm like, oh my god, kids stop saying air, R, and then he's like, I'm going to teach my son a little bit about the basics about the family business, and he's like, this is the greatest line ever. He was like, I want to have him get the feel for it. So he takes him into like this open area where there's just straight alcohol fermenting. And he's like, I wanted to get a feel of it. Let's bring this air straight on in. Tickle it. And the son is great. The son is great. And any wedding that you can wear jeans to and denim to, love it.
Yeah. No, that was, I mean, I think there was somebody in their like miner clothes or something, like, right out of the mining field, coal
Man,
mining,
you
mountain.
gotta work.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot
It
of
was,
choices that field. I really like the show, but I find it so important, and I really am thankful and respectful that you really put the history in there. And like I said, I was unfamiliar with Dean King beforehand, and now I love him.
yeah. Yeah.
And I'm a history geek, so like I said, I'm going to be audible, on Audible with all of his stuff before. So, but he's great. You got to keep him. He's perfect. But he narrates this story so well, and I like how like you'll have a scene in the show, and then you'll hear him relate a point of history from the story, and it ties together to the
Yep.
current time. And I like
Yeah.
that because he
Yeah.
talks about the wedding or the
I synopsis and these little, these little history moments that kind of like really help you to understand the context of what these families have dealt with across the years.
yeah. And I like the seeing the people that come do the tour, but the fact that they do work all day and have a beer in their hand the whole time, like that's about right. That it is about right. You're thirsty.
Yep. That's right. That's
But
right.
when you gotta be in bed at like 8 or 9 o'clock, that's when day drinking must factor in. You can't be night drinking. You're
No,
tired. You gotta be up early.
it's amazing. People are showing up at the distillery at 8 a.m., 8:30 a.m., 9 a.m. I mean, it's amazing when they're just coming in on their ATVs. They stop and
Yeah.
they get a case of moonshine and,
What?
yeah, I mean, it's a hit up there too.
Well, it's huge. I really enjoyed the show, and like I said, I love it, but I'm also frustrated because now I got something else to watch. I went fully down that rabbit hole. I did like the nesty plunge into the Hatfield McCoy rabbit hole. The story anyway. Like did you did you get where did you get the inspiration to do this series? Did you just
Well,
love the story? And then
well,
the
it,
Kevin Costner
he
movie was great with the
I have a feeling that Kevin Costner movie series was inspired by Dean King also, but I don't that I know that for sure. But I mean it was Dean and had been working with us Flying Scoop for a while. Flying Scoop is the production company, and Dean, really this has been a passion project of his for many years, and he really introduced us to this world and us into it. We really have him to thank for the inspiration and for really getting the ball rolling for us on this.
He's
And
awesome. I
yeah,
love that guy.
yeah, yeah, and he'd be a great interview for you too. I'd be happy to
My
set you.
God, please. And I'm such a history geek. And like my father was a history teacher and a historian, all that stuff. So my entire life growing up, like every weekend, I literally spent at like battlefields or doing something history related. And as much as it pained me as a child in my youth, I love it so much now. So now I do the same thing to my child. I'll torture them. Like, and like, what do you want to do? We can do this. And like, God, Mom, no, it's going to be great. But My my son loves history. Something worked out long run. But
Yeah, yeah. You got that history gene. You got the history bug.
I do. I love it. And but I that's the one. Yeah. So Dean would be great. There's such a connection there with the West Virginia connection. Like I said, I love West Virginia so much, and they reminded me so much of so many family members of mine. So like I said, I found myself laughing out loud. I loved that you had to put subtitles in. Like I said, I found that hysterical, but I understand it. I understand it. Do
Oh,
you ever
but you
catch
know what?
yourself like, what did they just
Yeah, you know, for sure. I mean, but I find that in, across the country. I think that it's wrong to think that, because we're, Americans, that we all have the same way of speaking. We all use the language in the same way. I mean, it is so different across the country, the way people speak in, communities in California versus people who speak in Alabama have a different, way of speaking. And,
right,
and I personally, I prefer to make documentary shows about those types, communities where people, they're not speaking in perfect academic sentences and, where it isn't, this kind of, standard English language. I like
right.
the colorful languages, the way that people kind of speak on the street, if you will, and the colloquialisms. I like I like the lingo, the language, the dialect, and when I find that, I just
We
think it
talk
just
like
makes
sailors in
much
West Virginia too.
sense. I just let it play. You know
Yeah,
what? If you need subtitles, so what? We'll put subtitles up if it helps people.
it's great. No, it's great. I because when I slip back into my West Virginia twang, I talk really fast, and a lot of
Yeah.
times, especially, I used to work for an international company for a long time. A lot of French, a lot of Europeans, and when I'd start talking, like, what? But with that being said, everybody that I worked with that was from abroad, everyone loved West Virginia. They loved the fact that I was from West Virginia. Everyone was obsessed, especially Europeans, were obsessed with the song Country Roads. It was huge. And I have stories when I was like years ago, like traveling in Europe. They'd be like, where are you from? You're from West Virginia. And they'd be like, Country Roads. John Denver. They didn't,
That's
they had limited like English. And I'd be like, yes, yes. And they kept looking at me like John Denver. And I'm like, no, I don't know. I don't know him. But they would just be so excited. And then like when I go to America, I want to go to West Virginia. I'm like, really? But there's such a connection all over. And
right.
I always found that just
Well,
fascinating. That
well, yeah.
Everybody loved West Virginia. So that story that
West
that's a great
Virginia
story.
I think West Virginia itself is really just, embodies the American values and dreams. I mean, it's wild. It's that wild country, and it really still a lot of it just still is. I mean, that's what's crazy is
Yeah.
that you kind of in so many places you kind of have lost the wilderness. But in West Virginia, it
Beautiful.
is the wild and beautiful
It's
West Virginia.
wild, wonderful West
Really is
Virginia.
one of the most beautiful states to drive through
Yeah.
and to get lost on the roads winding around.
You
It's
don't want to get
always
too long.
just don't get too
That's right.
make
You don't want to
sure
get too long.
make sure you know what city you're town community
Right.
you're
And it's
if
really cool. It's really cool.
what's
You
that.
also have some of the highest peaks there. You have Snowshoe. You've got the observatory, one of the best observatories globally. So I mean, like it's cool. There's so much research that goes on in the state. So I mean, it gets it does get a bad rap. Sometimes West Virginia because it's considered so country. It's that upsets me because it's very modern. And yes, we still have our traditional roots, but there's a lot of technology, a lot of business, a lot of innovation, and you know A lot
Yeah,
of people
absolutely.
studying arts are from there.
Yeah. And I like just the sense of family and community down there too. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And protectiveness of the family. And I did think it was wise that you had security at the wedding because the one guy showed, I mean, jeez, how many guns did the guy have?
well,
Anything else?
we were warned that we may need security ourselves when we go down there, that
Really?
by by the, by certain members of participants in the show. But, we found that hardly to be necessary.
The
Yeah,
nicest
everybody
people.
was really nice. Everybody was
Yeah. And
really
actually, they're
great.
just the kindest, the kindest people. And that's why I get so, I'm very protective and sensitive of my West Virginia people. They're wonderful. You said they're hardworking. They're the roots of America. I really think so. And they will give you the shirt off their back. So, and they're entrepreneurs never judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, no, they're really smart, really sophisticated, and really
MacGyver.
like they're MacGyvers. And man, I mean, I really admire what they've done and what they've come up with. I mean, Courtney has really injected a lot of fun entertainment into the Logan area with
Yeah.
her
And
business.
Joe.
Yeah, and creates jobs. And I've had the opportunity to hang out there and see it grow. I mean, the bar had, that they built there, the entertainment, it's fun. It's a really fun place to be. In fact, we ran into some people there that had, they were trying out both the Hatfield's distillery, and then they would come over to the McCoy's station, where
Yeah.
they could kind of party, so it's
Along
really
bar
fun. It's
crawl.
all built along these trails. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
is caught some of the tension between these families right now, but it's this Hatfield McCoy trail. I mean, there's thousands of miles of trails for the
Yeah.
ATVs, and which is just, I mean, it's amazing to see how many people are coming down there to basically go on an adventure that, doesn't, it's not, you don't have to go overseas to go on some crazy
Right.
adventure. I mean, right there in West Virginia.
Yeah. I love that it's bringing tourism to the area too. And then it just had like right where the new river is, the gorge right there. That's now a national park. So now which I'm so happy that that's a national park. So that's protected now. So have you been through that? Did you see that? Because you have to on your way there.
The Yeah, I mean, we got lost in every, nook and cranny. I mean, I don't know that I've ever taken the same route
Yeah.
there to get there. So,
Through
we're
the
finding
Holland.
through all kinds of different places. It's like, it depends on who's driving and, to
Right.
get down there.
Whenever you go down there next, please, please, please swing by the magic hole. Or maybe it's just called the hole or the magic hole. Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay.
Inform
Well, as you
me.
drive past it, it's essentially like a shack, but it's like this weird, like kind of like vortex that you
Okay.
go into, and like things just oddly, like you can have a broom that just stands up on its own. You lean sideways. It's this weird kind of an anomaly, but it literally looks like a shack, but it's just weird. But it definitely fits into the whole feel of West Virginia. Anybody from there knows it. But
That
you
sounds
gotta stop it.
that
And
sounds
maybe
pretty.
drink some moonshine. It'll be a whole other experience. But I do try it.
Yeah, well, I got some for you. And I'll
Please
tell
do.
you, it's a little bit tamed down from the still itself.
Okay.
Um,
So when they call
it,
a fire,
it's this stuff, they can actually sell this stuff. It's but it's really good. They're, I mean, Chad is really a master distiller. Not that I'm an expert in moonshine by any means, but
oh,
you know,
he looks like
that is
he's an
kind of
expert.
That is kind of one of the fun things about being down there in that area too, is everybody makes moonshine, and
Everyone.
everyone makes moonshine.
Everyone.
We
Yeah.
were joking at a restaurant one time. We were like, "Oh, we're just looking for some moonshine," and we had 3 or 4 offers from people around, sitting at tables around us, and they were like, "Oh, we'll bring you some moonshine," you know? We're like,
Right?
it's like
It's the best, and everybody has the best, right?
everybody has
And
the best. They know how to make it. Are they gonna make it with honey, or they're gonna make it with,
you gotta have
corn?
roots in
Not
there,
just
right?
corn. It's
Peaches,
like, where does that corn come from? Is that corn from their backyard? Is that corn from, you know
right?
the yeah, it's that really matters, is it from the farm? Yeah.
I thought it was funny when the one episode when he was talking about the moonshine. He was like, when I grew up, my dad, we used it for everything. We'd use it for toothaches. We'd use it for like wounds and like any basically
They
first
do.
aid or
They
disinfectant.
do.
No kidding, that is so true because growing up, I always would have strep. I got strep all the time. And they would give you a shot of like alcohol
Mhm.
and like or moonshine or
I
whatever it would
believe
be. And they would be like gurgling. I'm scared. Like, don't swallow it, just gurgle. You're like, it hurt. But it was so funny when you said that. I'm like, yeah,
everything. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
no,
gonna keep
I
that's
believe
in your first aid kit. Okay?
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
iodine.
yeah, yeah, officer, that's why I'm carrying that around.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Listen, no,
Yeah.
we were there during COVID, kind of like at the end, towards the end where people were starting to socialize again, but it was still a little bit hairy, right?
Right.
Of course, nobody down there, masks were not a thing. It like, wasn't, and, we're trying to protect our crew a little bit, but they're like,
Like I
don't worry.
said, your own world down there.
If you get COVID, you just take a shot of this and you're going to be fine. We're like, "Okay."
It kills everything. It's better than bleach.
Yeah.
It is. It is. So, so what? So you said about the switch, but what made you go into filming, movies, TV in general? Like what? Like how old were you?
When I got
Because
into movies,
there's also like
I just always loved media and I loved storytelling. I
yeah,
wasn't, I wasn't like some movie guru or I guess I never had that passion for movies. I loved content. I loved media and I liked the storytelling. So if it was a short story or a long story, I enjoyed it. But I tended actually, I think, kind of I caught the bug in college. And I started dabbling in it maybe in high school.
yeah,
And to be fair, I grew up around video cameras because my dad worked in some technology, and so we would have video cameras around us, and I got to play with those. So when I got to college, it kind of like something that I already kind of knew and understood, and I, oh, okay, so this is kind of, this is, uh, kind of just like bigger cameras than what I'm used to, and so
right.
I get to play with this technology, and I always kind of enjoyed that. So this was fun. I got to play with the technology, and then I was introduced to cinematography, which was using light to kind of tell stories. Okay, if this makes so in filmmaking, the black and white movies, they were told by using light to kind of create drama, and so I kind of got really into this idea of the visual art and started making movies and operating cameras. But I, really one of the things that I was exposed to was also the TV show Homicide, Life on the Street,
Mhm.
if you know that, for
Gotcha.
NBC. Way back when, right? They were
Yeah,
making that, and the cinematographer from that was using a new kind of style of camera operating, which was this handheld long lens, trying to make fiction look like documentary.
right.
And so I started practicing that type of long lens camera operating.
Mhm.
And I, you know, one thing led to I kind of like, it kind of flipped because he was using long lenses, motion cameras to make it fiction look like documentary. And I started using that technique to make documentary look more cinematic. And I started, and so I was kind of practicing this for a long time. And when I started I got asked to camera operate for a new TV show. They didn't really know much about what was going to happen, but they thought, we have to be ready for anything. And, they asked me to follow this guy who was a gambling addict. Well, this TV show turned into Intervention, and Intervention was pretty big, made
Yeah.
a splash,
Yeah.
and really
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
changed documentary television.
Yeah.
But I was following this gambling addict as he's like trying to pull his mom out of a car, and he's going to the bank and trying to cash checks. And it was like, I mean, the craziest things I never thought I would experience
Okay. Yeah.
started happening. And it was, I mean, like, honestly, I was like, I finished my work that day and I called my mom and I said, I don't have much time to talk right now, but I love you, Mom. And,
Yeah.
I
No kidding.
was, it was such like, thank God I don't have these issues in my life,
No, I can't imagine. I've seen a few episodes of the show back in the day, and even watching the show, it was emotional because I mean these people were in the thick of it. They're in the worst times of their life. They're at their lowest point. They're going through physical reactions. They're detoxing hardcore. Like I remember watching one episode, this girl just collapsed and went to a full seizure because she was in withdrawal. For somebody watching, it's emotional. It's in shock. It's a little shocking. It's jarring. But of course, like you've got the medical staff that they're used to it. But from someone that's like behind the camera, that I can't imagine how like emotional or just I would have been a mess after seeing something because it's just all day and it's not one story. It's multiple stories of people going through similar crisis.
Yeah. 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 I
That had
mean,
to be really hard.
it was, well, it was a very challenging show as a producer, but it changed the trajectory of my career. It changed what I wanted to do. And I was like, and the impact of that show was really, it was powerful, I think, for an audience. And it was powerful for me as an individual. I mean, it changed what I wanted in my life. It changed how I saw, my family, and every episode, we became attached to the families. We became attached to the addicts,
Right.
the people who were struggling in these, with addiction, or to their friends. We really became close, at least for those, while we were working with these families. We became really close with many of them, if not most of them.
Right.
And, I think there was a moment kind of close to, I was kind of getting ready to leave the show. Just at some point you kind of go, okay, this is a lot and it is really heavy. And, I was ready for a change. Loved my experience, one of the best experiences of my whole career. But I was taking somebody to a treatment center, and this guy came up to me and he goes, can I talk to you
Okay.
real quick? Yeah.
So
Yep.
do you mind if we put this on pause and then we come immediately right back and pick it up for part 2? Do you mind? Because I am thoroughly into this conversation.
Okay.
Do you
No
mind?
problem.
Guys, do you mind? Okay,
Yep.
I will come right back for part 2. Thank you so much for joining us today. And please follow us on Instagram at PollyWineTime, on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, iHeart, you name it, wherever you get your feed. Thank you for joining us today. And please come back for part 2 with our interview with Nate Starck. Have a great day. Bye.